Hello and welcome to week 5. We're just about, well, we are halfway through the course, and I think I'm really impressed with where you guys have gotten to so far. I will say, in retrospect, if you think of how fast you've gotten through some fairly challenging topics, I understand we don't linger too long in one place, but the idea of how to take data and to organize it into something that's at all useful, it can be your whole career, right? So you could stop right there. That is a absolutely incredibly valuable position as someone who's looking for meaning and trying to enable others to use data effectively. So my hope is that as we move so fast through things that we don't lose the end in sight. So we're going to spend some time. I know there's a couple of technical things I want to get through, but now that you just handled HTML, what I don't think everyone quite grasped, and there's still a week. You should, by the way, turn in the link to JS Fiddle in the assignment. The assignment's due on end of Monday night. I know as we work this week, there will be some insight you might get into your markup, but just to let you know there that we are going to take on another topic this week. Uh, if you would like more help with your HTML, what I wanted you to really grasp, and again, it might take a little while. That's why sometimes it takes till the end of the class to sort of see what we were really aiming for. But what you tackled was a controlled vocabulary, meaning you can only use certain words, which are the tags, to describe things. And working with a controlled vocabulary in HTML, many of you just leaned on what would be the most controlled vocabulary if you're just writing a Word document, paragraphs, lists. Many people have seen it, but not many in using that program go into the concept of how those styles can change and how that markup can actually create things like a table of contents. So read into the module. I know I described some of that, and this week I'm going to talk about a more controlled vocabulary, but this time you get a little more leeway, but not a lot. So controlled vocabulary, you can only have these words, you can only use them, you try to use them as best you can. That was HTML. Now we're going to get into taxonomies. And thankfully, whether you did a great job or a poor job at marking up your data, it still is it's still information, right? So it's okay, right? Information means it has some hierarchy to it. It's basically human readable. You accomplish that by hook or by crook. Now, if you're using those controlled vocabularies, you can get actually a lot more from computers than you can from humans, because humans at this point will find it probably worthless because you didn't really concern yourself with design. And that was on purpose. But the design doesn't really matter. What you're really actually marking things up for is your own reusability and your own need to understand the structures that you're going to be using later to be able to have the customer manipulate it. So I know that was a lot to go through, but if you want to reread the readings, maybe there'll be an aha moment and you can demonstrate that in assignment 2, which is again due. So just go ahead and put that into the mix. So this week we're talking about taxonomies. So this is another controlled vocabulary. I'm calling them nouns because they tend to group concepts together. So as you look through, definitely again read out the readings and media on this one. This is going to be another big topic about how to create taxonomies. So if I go to markup, I think I just addressed some of these. I think a lot of people thought this had a lot more to do with code, and I want you to know it has almost nothing to do with it. It has more to do with this, which is does a structure, can it look differently but be the same? So if you started with data, can you create more meaning by manipulating those things into different structural components? As I said, you're welcome to ask more questions about your JS Fiddle or your assignment. One thing I do think I recommend is at the top of the screen, occasionally because this is a cloud-based program, things can get a little out of sync. I've heard in the past, just put a date at the top and say something, if you don't know how to do a comment in HTML, it's fine. You can just write, I'm just reading the HTML. I don't have any interest in anything else. Just say, this is my final, I'm done. Whatever, put a date at the top just to make sure that I'm looking at the most current thought, because this is about thought. The reason why we're repeating our record 3 times is just so you get the feeling of how repetitious things are going to get, and they will get very repetitious. So these structures actually are quite powerful to get them right, because you're going to repeat them a lot. So week 5, you can already see a lot of ideas here about how do you use words to group and understand different topics. So I've got a few here. There's many more in the week 5 module. So once again, it's a time to read. There's also one of my favorite movie clips in here. So there's some help all around about how do you create the taxonomy for most of you. I think almost all of you, maybe a few exceptions, because we're still working on what is your data set. But let's say we're talking about books. Well, great. There's a huge taxonomy already existing around how you organize books. I was just in an app the other day, and how do you classify, what words do you use? And that's the goal of this week, to figure out what those words are. If they already exist, terrific. You can also invent them, and we will get to more of that next week. We will start to invent more words when we talk about navigation, but this is really going to be kind of I'd call it a subheader. If you have a title, then you've got a genre in a book. So genre is the taxonomy part. How do you classify this book? And you'll see it's a fun, challenging topic, especially when you're organizing things that maybe have just been invented. Think of things like programming languages, and again, I'm not going to go too far because I've already gone a little bit over my limit here. But my hope is getting you guys sort of inspired. I know we go very fast in this course, but this week is going to be a fun one because taxonomies are great, really important part of the job of organizing large data groups of data. So thanks. Have a good week.